let's go. Let's continue.
Recording in progress.
All right, let's see what we got here. Next item on the agenda, as soon as I find it, in all this paperwork, here is Attorney Jim Strube for Kelvin Sancoli, preliminary discussion of a zone change related to 1490 Echo Lake Road, Watertown.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. For the record, Jim Strube, an attorney at Secor, Cassidy, McPartland, offices in Waterbury, Southbury, and Litchfield, here with the Sancoli family and their business, CNS Masonry and Paving, which is a Watertown family-owned business. And while I've known them for some time, I know they've been looking for a location in Watertown to kind of consolidate their operation. I know they've been working with Musa and Mark for some time. And they have, frankly, stumbled upon an amazing opportunity with this piece of property at 1490 Echo Lake Road. When they told me what they wanted to do, and what I know about Echo Lake Road really is the higher up part, the corporate park, industrial manufacturing park, and they started talking to me about their paving business, potentially masonry supply, and I thought, boy, I better drive by. And then the further east I went on Echo Lake Road, as I started heading down the hill, I realized, wow, it does really transition in terms of actual uses on the ground. And then also when you look at the zoning map, it transitions, until the last presentation, I'm glad they went before us, because this really helps close one of those gaps. You know, the IG-80 zone is a little sporadic. This piece is zoned IR-80, but it's sandwiched in between a number of IG-80 zones. It will actually help make it seem a little more cohesive. If I may, I'd like to bring this up.
You could share it, Jim.
Thank you.
Where's the transfer station?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the old
That's the transfer station's below us.
Cherry Hill. Cherry Hill.
Cherry.
But that's the other.
Yeah, but what is, this is all,
Fair, whatever the hell.
no, it's forest.
Yeah.
Connecticut owns it.
Yeah. Okay, and what's this?
It's Manitoba Forest.
So why is it, it's not even a zone.
So just above it, if you're staring at the same map I am where it says site, just above it is the Stony Brook construction site.
Stony Brook Construction is above it, the brown
Yeah,
building?
as you're staring at it right above it. You'll see that that's IG-80. You'll see that
Which one is, this one
To the
or
left.
this one? This one here.
yeah, that's Stony Brook
Okay, and
construction.
What's this one?
What's that one, guys?
Okay, okay.
And what's amazing about the current site is there's just a single-family home on 10 acres with a big gate in front. So, you know, you often talk about things that are kind of out of place. This, more so than any I've seen in some time, that just don't really fit with its surroundings and its zoning. So when I consider their use, and one of the things they'd like to do, which currently, the way I read your regulations, is not allowed, is they'd like, as part of their paving and masonry business, to have a masonry supply component, which would have the public right now, if you're in Watertown and you need masonry supply either for your home project, or if it's a contractor, you're going either up to Bethlehem, or you're going over to Waterbury, up to Torrington, down to Naugatuck. Nothing in Watertown, nothing allowed, as I read the regs, in Watertown. This seems to me, that's what I was worried about when they explained it to me, but when I went to the site, I'm not worried about it. I think it would be a great place for it, both to serve Watertown residents, to serve an existing Watertown business, and then other contractors that are in town to have an option to come to Watertown as well. So this, what we're talking about, has two components. And frankly, the first piece I feel is natural. The concept of changing this piece from IR 80 to IG 80, given its surroundings, both in terms of what the zoning map shows and when you drive down there, what's actually there on those properties around it. Switching this to an IG 80 makes sense from a planning perspective. I'll defer to Mark on that concept as well, but it really closes that gap in this. And then the second piece would be to add a use to the IG80 zone, which I think is much better suited in IG80 than IR80, which would be the masonry supply component, so that they can move their paving and masonry business to this site. Looks similar to Stony Brook Construction next to them on one side, fit in with the surrounding, but then add a component to that of the masonry supply business, consistent with their business, but be able to sell to the public. That would be added as a new use in the IG80 zone. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, I'm not sure this is perfect everywhere in town. I really feel like this spot works. And I know we met with Mark and Moose, so they were very nice to meet with us. So I'll defer to their comments as well.
Like Josh.
Through the chair, I have a couple things.
Sure.
Mark, I'm going to refer to you. A few years back, we actually approved a masonry supply on this same road, several lots up on the right. I don't know how we did that, and I don't know if you recall it.
A masonry supply?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
A John
I was here.
Rubano,
Yeah.
a John, what was it, Sal Rubano, right, or Tony Rubano?
I don't remember his
That
name.
was the gentleman, he passed away with COVID, but I think he's the one that applied for that
Yep.
permit, and I think we did approve it.
Yeah, we definitely approved it.
That'd be a different zone.
Okay.
Certainly since the time that I've been here, there has been many requests for loosening and being more permissive for the use of outdoor storage,
Okay.
particularly in the IR or IG zones. And so we did wind up, and I now know what you're referring to, we wound up creating a new section of regulations that controls outdoor storage of materials, and had a lot of environmental standards to it. So again, the trend has been towards, the requests and the trend have been toward gradually loosening up some of those restrictions to allow some of those uses. So this seems to be a kind of a natural continuation of that trend, particularly as Jim mentions in this area, which is distinctly different from the corporate park area of just up Echo Lake
Right.
Road. I mean, this is characterized by, unfortunately, some rather historic, uncontrolled sites that have been damaged from use, junkyards, storage of asphalt materials, any number of things. So to allow the use in a more controlled fashion in this particular section of town seems to make sense.
Yeah.
And this particular site is, I suppose a fairly old site because it's located in the IR zone, and it has a single-family house and an out barn and an old pool. And as these guys have pointed out, it's rather isolated from the road.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You hardly know what's going on there. So
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the grandiose plans that were once envisioned from the Route 262 overlay zones, this seems to at least mimic current uses in the area, and again gives the agency a chance to allow certain uses in a more controlled fashion.
Yep. And it's-
Yeah, if I may, I mean, I've brought lots of applications where things almost fit into the zoning regs. So, in fairness to a prior application, maybe they came under wholesaling or distribution in IG80 zone.
Yeah.
and it worked. For these clients, I think clarity is really important. You know, they're looking to reestablish their family business in a place where they hopefully can stay forever.
Yeah.
So when I read through the regs, I don't want to go in, you know, different clients, you have different needs. I mean, these guys, I really want it to be clear what the uses are and what would be permitted with the approvals.
Is your proposal to change not only the zone, but the text for the zone, okay?
Yes.
How would the text change work, Jim?
The text change would add, you know, a sub piece, happy to have it be a special permit if that's needed, because I know depending on where a use like that goes, it can have certain impacts.
Right.
The text change would include, it would list, you know, J, under 226 2.2, it might just say masonry and supply, sale of product to the public. So it would have a part component with the outside storage, right, to make sure it was clean and environmentally acceptable, but then it would also acknowledge that the public's coming on to purchase, you know, on leaving, and those components would be considered by the commission.
Yep.
If more detailed standards needed to be put in, we can look at some other regs in other towns. Waterbury must have one recently. A couple of years ago, I was at a meeting where somebody was trying to put a new masonry supply business in a new zone that frankly would have been right on Watertown Avenue, which really didn't make sense, right? Because it's kicking up dust right in front of a well-traveled way. But so they must have some detailed standards that I can look at. Obviously, we know Bethlehem has no standards to look at. But I can look at some other towns to see what would best work. Happy to do that.
Ray, through the chair, I have a couple questions. Are you guys proposing a building on the site as well? Or
There
just
would-
outdoor storage?
No, the site's over 10 acres, so they would move their business there, so essentially a shop would go up above, and then below would, what we think, we still have to talk to the land planners about what works. Below would be where the public could pull in and have their masonry supply. They'd have their shop above, and their equipment for their paving and masonry business now would be on site as well.
And then would there be like inside storage room, like, or display room or showroom for the masonry products?
supply?
So there'll be an inside showroom, they'll basically display the types of stone veneer, patio materials, the whole shazam.
So similar to like O&G on South Leonard?
Yeah, O&G or a good one is Haynes up in Seymour.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
nice
it's
one.
huge.
It's more modern too, so.
Yep.
How big do you envision the building to be?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I haven't really gone into the details of that.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, frankly, even though Civil One prepared this zone map for us, the next, if there's a positive reaction to the zone change and the concept, they're really the next visit. We've already talked about it, because Civil One really has to look at the property and see what it can accommodate.
Well,
Through the chair, Ray?
yes, go ahead, Lou.
I would be in favor of this project. I think it's a good area for it, and I think these guys, you know, they're operating off of Route 6 now by Taft, and I think having a place where they could operate, I think, would be a real benefit for them. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I would agree with Louis. The only thing I would ask is do it as a special permit.
Sure, no problem.
Through the chair, first of all, you want, this is two things here. You want to change your IR 80 to IG 80.
Correct.
And I'm for that because that will give us some continuity on that Echo Lake Road. It's kind of ridiculous how everything's IG 80 and all of a sudden you got an IR 80 that's left over from the part to the east. I mean, the whole road should be IR 80. Now, the special permit, that's what I'm a little bit confused with. So is that, when you do a special permit, is that only for this one site, or would that be for all of RI 80 all throughout the town?
Just to correct, IG 80.
I mean, IG 80.
Correct. Any IG 80 person who wanted to bring in the future a masonry supply business,
Yes.
instead of trying to shoehorn themselves in somewhere else, they would have to follow any specific standards that your commission adopted through our zone change. I can certainly look some up, propose some, speak to Mark, see if we can craft something that'll work. And then when I'm before you, you might have some concerns that we can certainly add in as well.
All right,
And then
so-
any IG-80 applicant would have to come before the commission.
Okay, so are there other places in town that are IG-80 that are areas that we might not want to have a masonry component? I mean, I don't know,
That's a good question.
because once we change it to RG-80 and we do the special permit, then somebody's gonna.
If you recall Attorney Cummings' map from earlier, where she showed
Yes.
the IG-80 and how little there was in town as related to her showing of the IR-80 and IR-200, which are much larger zones, there's not that much. I guess a fair question is, the gentleman was here too before speaking about the self-storage on Falls Avenue. I mean, is that a portion of the IG-80 where this might not work? I'm not even sure on those
No, I mean,
pieces.
it would probably work there too, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if, I saw that map that she initially put up, and it looks like it's in that Falls area, and that's very small, and then over here on Echo Lake Road, but I'm not aware of any other areas in town that would be this IG-80, but, my concern is that, and first of all, I think this is a good location for your business, so I'm not trying to knock this down at all, but my concern is that, if we allow it here, that means there are other IG-80s that we might not, the neighbors wouldn't want to have it there.
Well, we can investigate that with Mark, and if we have to put in standards that make it difficult in other locations, then that's
Yeah.
what we'll have to do.
Well, is this the IG-80 right here?
Yeah, everything in the pink on here.
Mark, through the chair as well again.
Yes.
With a special permit, even though it's in an I-80, if somebody else wanted to do the same, they would have to acquire another special permit, right? And it would have to be under review?
Yes, the special permit would apply across the board, and it's an elevated level of review, recognizing that the use is allowed in that zone, but that each site presents a unique challenge in terms of development. So therefore, you have an elevated review process,
So,
including a public hearing.
Just to give you an example, if we approve this one down at the bottom of Echo Lake, and you know where the gas station is up on top of Echo Lake, there's that vacant lot across the street. If somebody wanted to, and if that was an IG-80 zone, wanted to put a masonry yard there, the chances of us denying them would be slim, right? Because it's allowed under special permit and it's allowed in the same zone.
Correct. Well, it would be allowed in the zone, but if you found special, this is where we have to craft standards to
That's why I'm
make
bringing it
sure
up,
they meet
to make sure
all
we-
potential uses
Yeah.
in that
Okay.
zone. You would have the ability to deny an application, but it'd have to be fairly out of sync and out of compliance with the standards.
Right. Okay, yeah, I was just wondering, so we draft this correctly, and so we're not allowing prime use of that for like a masonry yard, because I would not be for it on that particular corner.
Yeah, I think
Right.
what I'm hearing is we got to do kind of a build-out scenario where we look at all the IG-80 zones. That's where Mark and I can work together to make sure we craft something that if there's other areas where it's not as attractive, we can put standards in place that make it okay in this area of Echo Lake, not just our lot, but the other lots near it.
Spec out this site.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Make it,
That was my concern.
Yeah, spec
Yeah.
out this site like they,
Happy to do it. Sure, we can accommodate that.
We're happy about that, so we don't get many.
And that's all we really have. I don't want to take up lots and lots of your time, so.
Through the chair, just
Of course.
one comment. I'm in agreement with most of the people that spoke tonight about I think the location is excellent, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
For that type of business. You got Route 8, you got 18-wheelers unloading pallets, and it's a nice spot.
Yeah,
Good
thank you.
luck.
okay.
Excuse me,
I
through
think
the chair,
you
what-
got your answer.
Yes.
Are you in
course.
operation right now?
Not as a masonry supply, but their paving and masonry business is in operation in lots of places around, which is great. They're
Okay.
based on their signs, they seem to be doing well. It's great. CNS Masonry and Paving, yeah.
CNS paving?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, we move along. We have communications and bills. The Renaissance Galleria is going to the ZBA, not here, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
where are you sending this particular?
ZBA.
For what reason? For what reason?
Because that's where it belongs.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. If I may, when the letter first came in, of course, it's addressed, and it's addressed to me, the zoning officer, and it asks to issue a zoning permit for, I don't know how they phrased it, a zoning permit, or to make a ruling that a 100,000 square foot building that was previously on the site would be okay to build on that site. Well, there's no zoning permit, there's no details, there's no site plan, so that's one thing. Probably in a little bit of haste, because if I approved something like that, I probably wouldn't have a job tomorrow. I referred it to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but in hindsight, it was probably with a little bit of haste, in that it involves questions of nonconformity. It involves questions of the historical background that's taken part when the Sealy companies knocked down the building and transferred it or sold it to the new owners. So there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, and the town attorney and I will review that and come up with an appropriate kind of decision. If the decision is for me as the zoning official, to deny the request, then the proper channel would be, leading up to what you said, would likely be to the Zoning Board of Appeals on an appeal of my decision. That would be the proper place for that to go, as you said, rather than back to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So the best.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't finish my question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Richard. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question was to Mark. I believe you, Mark, would have first crack at this in making a decision. You would have full authority to say, okay, I will issue the permit. Then it would go to ZBA or wherever else.
Correct.
Am I correct on that, Mark?
Yes, sir, you are.
So your decision is very important in the matter as to where it goes. Because you could permit it to be acted right away, if so choose.
I'm not sure I heard all of that.
I think he says that your decision is critical in determining where it goes. Of course, if you approve it, it doesn't have to go anyplace. If you deny it, it has to go to the ZBA.
Correct. That's
Yes.
correct.
Right.
And since the non-conforming uses, particularly one like this is a large non-conforming use, there would have to be some review of the process. So, and what I mean by that is, normally, if, at least in my experience, if somebody had a non-conforming use and they intended to remove a building and to knock down that building, but yet preserve and memorialize that use and that structure where it occurred, what I would do is I would ask for a survey, I would ask for a zoning permit, I would sign off on that permit, again memorializing the fact that this is establishing this was a non-conforming structure with a specific site plan. and that we'd record it with a zoning permit. Well, none of that has taken place, and from what I understand, the conversation, at least verbally and apparently in emails, was had when Sealy had those discussions, but they never took the steps to do that. They never filed a zoning permit. They never made that request to keep that, to enhance that non-conforming use. So all we have is part of a record. And non-conforming uses, I've found it depends on who you talk to in terms of your interpretation of whether one can, whether they're granted as of right or whether there's some issue in play with them. So we'll review that with the town attorney and make an appropriate decision.
And of course,
that was my next question. It would be a matter of as right in order to move forward. After you made your decision, then you would go through the process of getting all the other paperwork. And so it is first, I think, your decision, and the question is as right, do they have the right to continue forward?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
But you are the key to the whole matter.
I hope not the key to the whole matter, but yes, I'd have to, as the CEO, make a decision in one manner or another in terms of response to Attorney Pilsey's request.
there's also, this is not Sealy that's making this application.
Correct.
All right, and it's a subsequent owner. And the subsequent owner clearly has alternate intents for the property, since they've made applications for multiple other uses than just this building, this 80,000 square foot.
Right, they can use the existing plan, which has a building height, building size, etc., that existed primarily under Sealy, because now the new owner is asking for the right to use the former site as it was before. In other words, they could build as high as 60 feet and take in 100,000 square feet for putting in a building the same size as Sealy, and the foundation and the material that we have before us.
Yeah, but
it includes, if I may, includes statutes that would protect the right of the developer, Renaissance, and it also has statutes that would protect the right to this decision. But again, I get back to Mark first has the right, not the commission. Mark has to first make that decision.
that's correct.
I agree. That is correct.
So, through the chair?
Yep.
From how I read this letter from Attorney Pilsey, some of this was kind of vague through emails about the fact that Sealy said, can we still build the building up after we tear it down? Now, I think before Mark makes a decision, this has to be brought before our town attorney. The town attorney's gonna have to.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna suggest, that we bring it to the town attorney. I'd like to have a motion, actually, since it's on. Do we even need a motion? Is it really on the agenda?
Well, actually, my request would be that you just turn the matter back over to me, and I'm representing to you that I will consult with the town attorney and then let you know the outcome.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Yeah.
Second? Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item on the agenda. Town of Middlebury, Connecticut zoning amended text to create a new allowed RO resident for bed and breakfast facilities. Why is this? Is this because it's close to our border?
Yes, it's because the zone, one of the RO zones falls within 500 feet of an adjoining municipality, so by law, by regulation, they have to notify any adjoining municipalities of their regulation changes. And we would have to we would normally do the same thing if the tide was turned,
So
so to
there's
speak.
nothing to worry about. What, we don't have anything to vote on here, it's just.
No, there isn't.
Okay, all right. And ditto with number C here, certified letter from DEEP, notification of noncompliance for Forest Practices Act.
They found a flaw in the Watertown zoning regulations that I think usurps some of the authority of the state to review and regulate forest practices. So they've made a request that we revise our regulations.
Well, tell them we're in the process of changing our regulations.
Yep.
Right? Right. And,
I think that was for the Hog Ridge property, right? They found all those clauses?
yeah, there's,
Yeah, that was for our problem. We come up with trees there.
next meeting date is August 2nd. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
At second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.